I don't know, it's a freedom that you don't have any other time. I loved looking at clouds and being close to them and looking down at things and seeing all the beautiful things that are there. It gives you a totally different perspective of the world.
Attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, hello. My name is Brian Miller. I'm the chair of the Single Family Design Board, and I'm starting to convene the May 11th, 2020 Single Family Design Board. And we're going to start off by, if we have any public comment, any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for a public discussion. So has anyone communicated about that? So I'm hearing no response. So
I don't see any members of the public who wish to speak on items not agendized, but if we could please maybe first start off with a roll call just to for the remote public hearing process. I know that Mary will open it up with roll call. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Mary, Commission Secretary. I will now take roll call. We have Chair Miller.
Here.
Vice Chair James.
Here.
Board Member Farrell.
Here.
Board Member Motisha,
Here.
Board Member Richards,
Here.
Board Member Sweeney,
Here.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, since I've already talked about public comment and you said no one has come forward, I will go to item B, the approval of the minutes for the Single Family Design Board meeting for April 27th, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So
Make a
moved.
motion to approve the minutes of the 27th.
Okay, hold on. Mary, did you get that?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
So pardon my interruption, sorry, Mr. Chair. Just as a reminder to everyone, just so it's not as confusing, it's best practice to turn on your webcam, and that lets the chair know who wishes to speak. So, so if someone wants to second a motion, it's best to turn on your webcam, and then the chair can call on you. I think that's easier rather than kind of getting voices coming in where it's not clear who it is. Thank you.
Okay, I will go through the items of the minutes for last week's meeting. We have 216 Santa Rosa Place, 2222 Gibraltar Road, item 350 Rubio Road, item number 4, 3354 Cliff Drive. Item number 5, 1426 Mountain View Road. All those in favor of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed or
Aye.
abstention?
Aye.
Aye.
And again,
Aye.
generally, we have to do a roll call for this as well. I know it's a little
Oh, right,
bit
I'm sorry.
annoying, so, but Mary, if you could please do a roll call.
This is Mary, Commission Secretary. I will take roll call. Chair Miller,
Aye.
Vice Chair James,
Aye.
Board Member Farrell,
Aye.
Board Member Motisha,
Aye.
Board Member Richards,
Aye.
Board Member Sweeney,
Aye.
Board Member Ziegler.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Now to move to approval of the consent calendar for May 4th, do I have a motion to approve?
I make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mary, can you go through the minutes? So should I say it or should Mary say it? I'm not sure.
I think that's Ted. Ted should go
Yes.
through the
Oh,
minutes.
Ted, sorry. Hi, Ted.
Ted would be the one to click on.
Yeah, there you are.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. All right, so I essentially just state the address of the project, correct?
And the motion as well.
Okay. All right, for item A, we have 574 Ricardo Avenue. The motion was project design approval with comments. Item B is 3354 Cliff Drive. The motion is to continue indefinitely with the comment that the project is ready for project design and final approval at the next meeting. Okay. And this would be the minutes for today's consent hearing, May 11th.
Okay, I
So
wanted.
for,
Oh, you're gonna do May 4th next?
Mr.
I
Chair,
believe.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
I think we have to make a motion or approve
Mr.
that.
Chair, you need
All those in
to
favor?
act on the first item and then review today's. So there's a roll call on last week's consent, and then you review today's consent with a roll call also.
Right.
This is Mary. I will now take the roll call vote. We have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler. Board Member Ziegler.
Board Member Ziegler, you should be able to test your audio now. Go ahead.
Well, I think I'm okay. Let's see.
Yes.
Yeah,
Could you
I can
respond to the motion?
Yeah, but I can't find the audio thing. I didn't turn it off.
We can hear you now, so if you'd like to,
I'm saying
Steve.
yes. Yes.
okay, perfect.
All
Thank
right,
you.
motion carried.
Okay, that was for May 11th, was that correct? May 4th? May 4th, okay. So to review May 11th, do I have a motion to approve? Oh,
So
wait a
moved.
minute. Okay, yes, and a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ted, can you review the minutes?
Yes, this is Ted Hamilton. So we're going to go through the minutes for the May 11th consent meeting, starting with item A, 1419 Shoreline Drive. The motion was to, I apologize. Am I reading the motion on these, or am I reading the minutes, or what is my role in this particular instance?
Yeah, so,
Ted, if I may, it's appropriate for staff to read the address, and then you read the highlighted bold-faced statement, and including any comments that may have been made part of a motion.
Okay, got it.
hi, so I just want to clarify, what we have up right now is the agenda for today's consent.
Yes.
We don't have the minutes up, so Ted should have access to the minutes within our system, and if not, let me see if I can find it real quick. I apologize for this awkwardness.
Chair Miller, I will pull up the minutes on my screen over here and read them.
Okay,
Perfect.
Please bear with me while I pull them up.
sure.
Okay, item A for the May 11th consent hearing is 1419 Shoreline Drive. This is a new item for a concept review. No final appealable action will be taken at this hearing. Project requires neighborhood preservation, hillside design, and sloped lot findings. Review by the staff hearing officer for a minor coastal development permit is required to allow the proposed development in the appealable jurisdiction of the city's coastal zone.
Excuse me,
This
Ted, is that the minutes or is that the agenda? What is-
This is the minutes.
Okay, all right.
The item was postponed 2 weeks for renoticing, and as a point of order in the project description there, the project actually requires review by the Planning Commission, not the staff hearing officer, for the coastal development permit. And the item needs to be renoticed. Okay, item B, 623 Surf View. Project design approval and final approval are requested. A minor zoning exception is requested for a fence and gate exceeding the allowed height of 3.5 feet within 10 feet of the front lot line. The project requires neighborhood preservation and hillside design and slope lot findings. The motion was project design approval and final approval with comments. And item C, for final approval, we had 3070 Seacliff. Final approval is requested. Project requires neighborhood preservation, hillside design, and slope lot findings. And the motion was for final approval with comments.
Thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before you do a roll call, I have a question. I believe
Yes.
it was item 1,
Yes.
Shoreline Drive. That's been postponed, but we received, all of us members received emails this morning from nearby neighbors concerned about power poles and power lines, et cetera.
Yes.
Is staff going to be clarifying all of those issues with the applicant, given the fact that I don't believe that issue is under the purview of this board?
Can someone from staff comment?
Yeah,
Hi, Ted.
Board Member Sweeney, yes, the staff will support the board in stating that the purview of the Single Family Design Board is the design and aesthetics of the project. The power poles that have been may have been discussed are not part of the purview.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Okay, any other comments? Can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, this is Mary. I will now take roll call. We have Chair Miller,
Yes?
Board Member James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Here.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
All right, motion carried.
Thank you. Item D, announcements, requests by applicants or continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items or appeals. Do we have any?
Mr. Chair, this is Ellen Kokinda. I just wanted to let you know that I forgot to mention it earlier, but Timmy Bolton is controlling the plans for the applicants and for you, the board as well. So if you have specific requests for him to zoom in or move over or to go to a certain page, you can just give him the verbal instructions to do so. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving to item E, do we have any subcommittee reports? I don't think we have anything. I think everything's sort of been postponed. With that, I will go to our agenda of item number 1, 3405 Sea Ledge Lane. This is a continued item. They're requesting project design approval. Lisa, could you please read into the minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The proposal is to demolish an existing 16.
Well, hold on. I'm sorry, Lisa, I did this wrong. Do we have minutes from the previous meeting? I guess is what we should read. Is that correct? Sorry.
So we should be reading the project descriptions at the beginning, and then we should have the minutes.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, okay. So, wait a minute. Just moved out of my, it just got resized. So I cannot see. Hang on, let me see if I can adjust my screen to accommodate it.
Ms. James, just one thing, if you see, do you see a gray bar that's separating the webcams from the presentation?
Yeah.
If you adjust that gray bar, you can kind of pull it up and make the webcams really small, and then that makes the project or the presentation much larger.
Yeah, really cool.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Great.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Here we go. For item 1, 3405 Sea Ledge Lane. It's seeking project design approval, and the description is proposal to demolish an existing 1,620 foot square foot single-story residence and a 462 square foot detached garage and construct a new 2,809 square foot single-story residence with a detached approximately 714 square foot garage / storage building, 461 square foot garage and 253 square foot of storage area, and a new 477 square foot detached ADU unit. Total accessory building floor area excluding the garage would be 730 square feet. The project also includes construction of a new entry gate, fencing, trash enclosure, and motor court, including an uncovered parking space to serve the accessory dwelling unit. Removal of 12 fruit trees, citrus trees, and an installation of 6 new trees and landscaping, and an abandonment of the existing septic system and connection to the city sewer. Approximately 50 yards of cut and 300 cubic yards of fill would be required to complete the improvements. Associated improvements to the north side of the private sea ledge lane include 110 linear feet of retaining wall with a maximum height of 3.5 feet and an approximately 500 square foot new asphalt paving to widen the roadway. Project includes front setback modification along sea ledge lane to allow encroachment of the detached storage garage building and ADU into the 35-foot front setback. A modification for the ADU and storage portion of the garage storage building to be located in the front yard, and a modification to allow the total aggregate floor area of accessory buildings on the property, excluding garages, to exceed 500 square, can somebody, let's see, feet. The proposed total of 4,000 square feet on a 57,063 square foot lot is 78% of the maximum guideline floor to lot area ratio. PDA is requested and requires neighborhood preservation findings, hillslide and slope lot findings, and grading findings.
Real comment, just to clarification on my part, normally on something like this doesn't, I don't recall us reading into the minutes the description, but that's fine if we do. We just kind of did the minutes of the previous meeting. Is that correct, Fred? Or does it matter?
Chair, if I may, on an item that has now been continued, this was an item that we reviewed in March 18, 2019. When that was introduced, we read into the minutes the description that Lisa just read. When it comes back to us, the only thing that we read at this point is the action required by the appearance today.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
The minutes of that March 18th meeting, and we only read the motion, who made the motion, what the vote was, and what the content of the motion was. Unless because of its visit to the Planning Commission in the interim, the project scope, as just read, changed from its initial presentation. So the question I have is, did the applicant change the project description that was just read?
Mr. Chair and board members, for clarification, it is typical at the beginning of every item that we do read the project description, and especially in these remote meetings, we have been directed to have the project description read at the beginning of each item.
Okay.
So it might be a new practice for the board, but we just ask that you bear with us. We're just trying to keep these proceedings as formal as possible.
Okay. So traditionally, in the past, when it's been a return item, the vice chair usually
reads the
describes the item, and the new item, the chair describes the item. Should we continue that practice?
So I'm sorry, I had the automated lady telling me I was muted. So what was the question?
Well, I don't know if it matters, but traditionally, when a project comes up to us again, the vice chair is the one that tells this description. If it's a new item, it's the chair describes the description. That's sort of what we've been doing. So
Yeah,
I'm-
so the chair is in charge. Yes. So Matthew Zelmos, planning tech for ABR and supportive tech for SFGB.
Yeah.
So the chair runs the meeting. So you decide, Mr.
Okay.
Chair Miller, if you would like the vice chair to read the minutes, or if you would like to write the minutes. It's your job to delegate.
Okay, thank you very much, Matthew. Well, we don't want to break tradition, so I'll have Lisa. All right. With that description, do we have any, do we have the person representing the project?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
before we get there, do we have the minutes and what did we say the last time so we know that the applicant is going to be addressing whatever our comments were?
thank you. Good question.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate your call. I do.
So Lisa, can you share what the motion was?
Yes, I sure can. Continue to the Planning Commission with these comments. Number one, the board finds the proposed green roof system acceptable. Number two, the board finds the standing seam metal roof appropriate and requests that the applicant return with the seam dimensions. Number three, applicant to show exterior lighting on the plans. Number four, applicant to show the landscaping between the bluff and bluff setback on the landscape plans. Number five, the board tentatively defines the project's neighborhood as extending from Sea Ledge Lane. And then there was no description after that. It drops off right there.
Just one.
So
That makes sense actually, because it's just one lane, so that kind of makes sense.
okay, Sea Ledge Lane and nothing. Okay, six, the board finds the proposed fence height acceptable and sends positive comments to continue to the staff hearing officer. Motion made by Farrell, seconded by Ziegler, and carried 7-0.
Thank you. Do we have a representative from the project?
Yes, Heidi Jones here from Suzanne Illich's office. Good afternoon, Chair
Hi.
Miller and board members. Hi. So just want to make a couple clarifications. As noted, we have gone and received approval from the Planning Commission. A couple minor changes have happened from the project description overall since the last time we saw you to where we are now. And those things are, initially we thought we had needed a minor zoning exception for some overheight fences and walls, and through the DART review process, those were adjusted and we no longer need that. So that was part of the original project description. That's not a part of the project any longer. Secondly, we had a trash enclosure component, I believe, when this first came to you. So we no longer have that. The trash storage is now contained within the garage.
Heidi, could you
Turn on what?
turn on your webcam? So
I
we can-
don't have a webcam.
Okay,
I
that's
apologize. I apologize. So we have our architectural team here with Blackbird. Ken Radke is on the line, and I believe Susan Vianata, if you have questions on the landscape. But we will run through your comments related to the standing seam roof dimensions and landscape plan areas. A couple updates that had happened since you last saw it were just some minor adjustments to the reflection of coordinating our stormwater management plan and reconciling some of those elements related to paving and overall impervious surfaces, as well as some slight change to roof forms as a result of structural design development. So with that, I'll pass it on to Ken Radke and he can walk you through. I'm available for questions.
Thank you.
Hello, Chair Miller, members of the board. Thanks for being here under these circumstances. We should probably go to the materials and you might start with the PDF that has all of the larger PDF. Are we seeing that?
I see a materials board.
Yes.
Let's see. So how do I see that?
I don't know.
Is that showing to everyone?
Yes,
Mr. Radke, this is Ted Hamilton, planning technician for SFDB. what is the document titled that you would like to show us?
I think it's entitled CLEDGE 2002212 Plans SFDB
So it'd be our project plans, I believe.
PDF that has the plans.
Do you see the plans
So
now, Ken?
Yes, that should be the PDF that is currently on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. I don't. For whatever reason, we're just seeing. I apologize. I'm not
Ken,
seeing.
You could just, part of my interruption, this is Alan Kokinda. Could you tell us what you are seeing on your screen, just so I can?
A grid of videos.
We see you.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see anything? It might be hiding behind a screen. If you go to the bottom of, do you see the GoToMeeting application, or if you minimize some of your, maybe a browser, it might be behind it. Unclear.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing right now is the first page of your plan set.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to see. I just can't see that so that I would know for sure that we're looking at the same thing. And so I apologize. I don't know how to.
At the top, Ken, there's a drop-down key that says everyone. It has a little icon with people, and if it's a drop-down, you click view everyone, and then everyone will go to the top, and the screen share will be on the bottom.
Yep, I got it. We had another technical difficulty here. Sorry. So you're on page 1. Excuse me for slowing you down.
Okay.
This is the title sheet, and the data of the project has already been presented. So I think that I'll skip that, and you might go to PDF page number 3. So this has some photos, and if you're able to zoom in on the upper left photo, I think that's helpful for the group. This gives the context of the project site. You can see Cliff Drive going by here, heading from lower right to upper left. And the project site is a kind of a nose that is higher than the Sea Ledge Lane down below. So Sea Ledge Lane starts at Cliff Drive, switches back up to the left and back down to the right. And our site is much higher than the lower end of the Sea Ledge Lane out there by the bluff. Then I would say that the next best plan to go to would be PDF page number 14. Here you're seeing the existing site plan. And those garage and residence structures are proposed to be demolished. And then you could go to PDF page 15. So at this point, we'll be kind of going straight through. So page 15 shows you the site plan. And you can see that the property goes out into Cliff Drive. That was one of the topics. Sea Ledge Lane, in essence, is a private drive. And the project includes, I thought it would be good here to just point out there's a retaining wall across Sea Ledge Lane to the north. So if you go straight up, you can see a gray, that is that 2 to 3.5 foot max new sort of renovated retaining wall and the slight widening of the private drive. So all of this has been covered at great length with the Planning Commission and with the neighbors, who are certainly quite supportive of the widening of the drive there and the stabilization of the sort of topographic situation. On the main site, then you can see that the existing driveway on the right, as we're looking at it, is essentially maintained, and some vegetation per Planning Commission and neighbor desire is being trimmed up at the corner at the street in a minor way. The entry court, everything here is almost identical to what you all would have seen a year ago as the board, with the arrival through a gate to a drive court with a garage, a sort of an arrival garden that is to the south, the ADU, which is up to the left, and the main residence, which is bigger than the previous house, but actually set back further from the bluff than the previous house. The site plan, again, includes very, very minimal sort of change on the bluff side, which basically includes some planting, some native and drought tolerant planting to respect the sensitivity of that bluff situation. And if you just go to the next page, which would be PDF number 15. Or that's 16, that's perfect. This shows the floor plan of the main residence, which is a great room with a master room to one, master bedroom suite to one side, and 2 bedrooms and a guest bath on the other side. It shows the ADU there to the left, which is the west, which is this small living quarters, and with its essentially the main residence and the ADU lining up with their views out across the bluff to the south, and then this garage storage building, very, very simple. If we go to the next page down, which would be PDF page number 17, the roof plan. This shows you the green areas there are green roofs, so low slung flat green roofs with succulents and sedums, and then 2 standing seam roofs of very, very low slope. These are butterfly roofs, so they capture the water in their middle and then capture the water onto the green roofs or into our stormwater systems as a best practice. The standing seam roof that the question was asked, those are 18-inch standing seams, 18-inch apart with a 1.25, so 1.25 inch tall standing seams of a sort of a matte gray, dark gray color. And then if we go, I think from here we might go to the materials board, which is a separate PDF. It's a 1-page, yeah. This captures the palette of this entire project is muted, absolutely. For the Molines, this project is a quiet family retreat, and they really intend to fit quietly into the site. The site faces outward to the bluffs and horizon, to the south and the west. It also then fronts onto essentially, technically onto Cliff Drive and to the private drive. Those areas are very, very heavily vegetated, so that views into the site are almost none whatsoever. So there's tall, very dense vegetation existing that is proposed to be maintained. The palette, if we go from top to bottom on the left, you'll see the green roof and the standing seam roof, sort of photo examples of that. On the right, at the top, you'll see the fascia trim metal, sort of this muted gray color that is to be used for roofs. On the facade, you will also see a series of 2-inch by 2-inch vertical hardwood slats of sustainably harvested or salvaged teak or similar material that would age to silver. There are various mineral pallets on the side of the building, including some concrete, board form concrete that's intended to be a warm integral color on the concrete. And then there's also a brown exterior plaster with a sponge finish to expose its rough aggregate So again, and then the doors and windows are pre-finished, sort of a dark bronze, brownish, black, if you will. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. Hardscape materials in general are earth tone pavers and concrete pavers and stone. And then if we went to PDF page 18, on this page, if we could start on the lower elevation, if you zoom in just a little bit on that. This is the north-facing sort of arrival side elevation, so you can see the elements there of plaster. The vertical elements there are the wooden slats, the staves, if you will, kind of a hovering rain screen of wood. And then there's the entry where that glass is and the person standing at the front entry door. And then alternating between the wooden staves and some floor to ceiling glass elements. You'll see to the left again is the master bathroom, actually on the far left, and the powder room, bathroom, and bedroom as you go to the right. The pop-up element there that reaches a maximum total elevation at one point of 15'6" is the butterfly roof that's over the great room. So that's a little bit back from where we are viewing now, but it does show in this kind of elevation projection. Then if we went to this other elevation up above, you'll see that that same palette is used in improvised manner as you proceed around the house. So here you're seeing a board form concrete wall in that natural color, the green roof, and then fairly far beyond is that very, very slightly broken butterfly roof. And you can see that on the one side, it reaches a maximum of 15'6" at the upper left. And then we could go to the next PDF page down, which is page 19. And we could, let's see, so on PDF page 19, this is the other end of the main residence, which has the, you're seeing essentially a bedroom with its windows out to the garden, and that the main area with its patio to the right, and the bluff is to the right. And then if we go to the other longer elevation below, this is the bluff side facing elevation. So in the middle, you've got the big sliding glass doors as one might expect in this situation. So you've got a kitchen, a dining, and a living from right to left. So that where you've got a kind of a counter height sill there, that's in the kitchen. Then you've got the dining, and again, where it's shadowed, where that person is standing is a kind of a U-shaped 10-foot indentation in the building. That's a little sheltered alcove. Likewise, on the right, where the other person is standing, is another little coffee alcove. On the far right is the master bedroom windows. With the green roof is about 11'1" total height, so very low slung, very horizontal windows, and likewise, that datum wraps all the way around. So 11'1" for the entire green roof. You can see the palette of that earthy mix of elements. If we go to the next sheet, which would be PDF sheet 20, and you could probably just show the whole sheet here. It's a square boxy rectangle that is alternating, where you can see the garage doors, which are made of wooden slats as well, but that have windows in it. That's at the bottom. You can see the yard fence, which would also be made of a kindred wood construction, kind of rain screen for the fence of the hardwood, and that's in elevation number 2. elevation number 3 is facing to the west. So you're seeing kind of the back of the garage there. And elevation 4 is the side of the garage that faces the main house with the doors where you would come out of the garage if you were on your way to your house. If you go to PDF sheet 21, you'll see the ADU from all 4 sides. So the bottom elevation, it's big sliders as you might imagine, because that side faces to the view to the ocean. It is well set back. Both houses are, distinctly set back from the bluff, but they then improvise with the palette. Then the elevation 2 is the entry elevation, if you will, facing into the indoor sort of garden courtyard. Elevation 3 is the sort of north-facing elevation, which is mostly closed. There's a small garden there, and then you can also, there's the fence and then the dense vegetation from that side. And then elevation number 4 shows that westerly view of that same ADU with its relationship to sea ledge. The drive on the left there, you can see that there's that area of dense vegetation that completely screens the entire site from either of the streets. From here, we could go to, I think it would be best to go to PDF page 23. This is detail sheet, so we do have a fair amount of details, but I won't burden you with that. This just shows the some of the detail situations, and there is a call out for the standing seam and that fascia. In the lower left, you can see the sort of the green roof section. If you went to PDF page 24, this is the site lighting plan, which you all were interested in. And you can see it's a very, very minimal. This site does not need a lot of lighting. So what you're seeing is very low path lighting. So if you use and you can see the cut sheet of that on the lower right of the small path light that's very well shielded to provide just some pools of light to navigate the site in the evening. So that's in the drive court and in the little garden between the buildings. And then the only other light is there's one light that is at the front gate, which is the cut sheet in the middle right, which is the downlight can sconce. And then there is recessed lighting in the roof overhangs in kind of 3 different situations. 2 of the situations are the bluff side covered outdoor spaces. So we've got these small little small aperture recessed lights to provide some light at those situations. And then we do have some of that same recessed lighting on the building at the front door, which is where that north-south running stone monolith is there at the, so down lighting there. That's the exterior lighting. If we went to PDF page number 9, we'll get to the landscape plans. And we could have some interpretation of that.
As per the minutes that you read at the beginning of this item on the agenda, last time we came before you, we showed landscaping only within the boundary of the work. And we were asked to come back showing the landscape for the bluff. So we previously showed the landscape, and now we include the bluff landscape. And so we are showing, even though it won't be affected by construction at all, we are showing using plants native to this coastal bluff within that setback. So that would include the giant wild rye, which is very erosion controlling, the California sunflower, dove bush, atriplex, and lemonade berry to keep the slope stabilized. And some of that grows there already. The entire site is drought tolerant. We don't have any turf areas. They do have some native grasses, and there were not any protected trees on site. There were a few kind of scraggly eucalyptus. The fruit trees that are being removed were not healthy, and we are maintaining olive trees for screening. And there are some other trees that are down the edge of the bluff towards the west, and those are staying. So we discussed the rest of the landscape plan at the last hearing.
One other thing that we should cover, in coordination with the Sea Ledge Lane Owners Association, we're making some improvements in the area between private Sea Ledge Lane and Cliff Drive that includes installation of a low retaining wall. So we should have a detail uploaded for that, a wall detail or color board. So in coordination with the neighbors, we're proposing this wall along with some hardscape improvements. And then collectively, they have a preference to have kind of the sandstone finish. I don't know if staff can pull up that detail.
There should be one more document. That was the last thing on my list of things to cover as well.
Right. I
So
had
it's a
uploaded it.
separate document, has a photo, a little photo of a stone clad wall.
Mr. Chair, and to the applicants, this is Timmy Bolton here, who's controlling the plans. Do you know the name of that file?
I'm looking at it right now so I can let you know. It should be the date 5/7/20 SFDB wall details.
I apologize. I don't appear to have that file as part of the packet that was sent to me. I'm not sure if Ted might know what happened.
I had sent it to you and uploaded it to the ACA.
This is Ted Hamilton. It might be named something different in the system here. There is a document called Sea Ledge Retaining Wall, 200506. I believe that is the PDF that Ms. Jones is referring to. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Would you mind just shooting me a quick email with that, Ted, and I can get that loaded up in just a second then?
Yes, Timothy Bolton.
It's a very minor detail, and once you get it, you guys could take a quick look and pass judgment. And essentially, thank you for your patience, and we're happy to cover anything or answer questions.
Just a quick question regarding this retaining wall. Can you kind of show us on the site plan what you're referring to?
Yeah, that's the same one that at the very beginning, I had mentioned that it's, and the controller had done a good job of hovering the cursor over that for all of us.
Okay, I must have missed it. The cursor was white, I think.
Yeah,
We need to bring the plan
so if you
back
bring
up
the
on screen.
site plan up, then we could see that.
Another quick comment.
Go ahead.
The minutes. Did you address all the items on the minutes? Since I don't have it in front of me.
Yes, you asked about the standing seam metal, the landscape, and the exterior lighting on the plans.
Thank you.
But if we were able to go to that site plan, then that would allow Chair Miller to see where that retaining wall was.
So, Mr. Chair, so Timmy's working on pulling up the image of the retaining wall, and he'll also get back to the site plan, but just give him a minute, if you don't
Okay.
mind.
Well, while he's looking for that, should we go to public comment?
I think that's a great, well, here we are, Timmy. Thank you.
Thank you. So this, if you're familiar with the area, as you traverse down from Cliff down Sea Ledge Lane, eventually you'll hit a private gate with this stone column with the little gate controller in it. So this is what we want to match because it matches what the other finishes that are along that lane, in addition to a neighboring wall that is across the street from this property. They all have this kind of similar finish. So we thought it would be best to kind of match it and just give that little retaining wall some character. If you're familiar with the area, there's a very small, inconspicuous existing portion of wall. We can show you on the site plan where that is, but the idea is then to continue it from that point. So once we get the site plans back up, we can show you where that is.
I'd like to make one more comment, actually a correction that I made earlier about the minutes, about the designated neighborhood. Lisa, and it was written that it was on only Sea Ledge Lane, but I'd like to update it to Sea Ledge Lane and Cliff Drive. Is that acceptable?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I would suggest that you just advise us to make that part of a motion at the end of this item.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Now on the site plan, you can see here across this, the private Sea Ledge Lane, the gray hatch where the road needed to be widened slightly.
Yes.
And the gray line where that low wall just holds the toe of the slope.
Thank you very much. Got it. Should we move to public comment now? Do we have any response? Anyone wishing to speak?
If I could, thank you, Timmy. It looks like if anyone would like to speak on this particular item, please raise your hand using the hand icon and I will call on you. At this moment, I do not see anyone in the audience who wishes to speak. And I'll just ask Ted if there was any written public comment.
Chairman Miller, there is one item of public comment to be read into the record. This was sent by David Neubauer, a member of the Sea Ledge Lane Association, in support of the project.
Thank you. Yes, did everyone get a copy of it? It came in the email as well. I received a copy.
Yes.
Seeing that. Okay, thank you. Any other? Okay. So moving on, I'll bring it back to the board. Does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Sweeney.
Let's see, just a few quick questions. On the green roof, we've been struggling with the issues of green roofs and our city fire department on several projects. Have this been blessed and everything looked at for the green roof by the fire department?
You want me to address it? Is anyone else on our team want to address it? Because I do have a comment.
Yeah, you can jump in, Susan. I know that we talked about this the first round, and Susan can weigh in on that, but we haven't had any, the fire department has been okay with it so far, but Susan can chime in as well.
Also, specifically, the Planning Commission okayed it.
Mm-hmm.
And it came up when we had a discussion at the Planning Commission, and we talked about our experience with green roofs in the city and the county here, and that satisfied the Planning Commission. It will have spray irrigation, so I know the fire department is concerned, but in addition, it is all sedum, which is not particularly flammable.
Okay, great, thank you. And then just a couple more questions. On the road improvements on Cliff Drive that are shown on the drawing that's on the screen now, there is some signage before you get to the lock gate that is attributed to the folks on the rest of Sea Ledge Lane, you know, some cautionary, don't park here, et cetera, et cetera. Is that signage going to be redone, or is they're just going to leave that there, or how does that work?
We don't have any plans to update it. I believe it's just like a last name and a number and maybe an arrow, some simple directional signs. We surely could consider updating them if you guys choose. We would have to coordinate that with the Owners Association.
Yeah, it's just that I walked down there yesterday because I hadn't been out there for a while. So, this has been, a year since we've seen it. So I went down to familiarize myself with the site again, and some of those signs are kind of overgrown. You can't see them, et cetera. So that's why I asked the question. And then on the retaining wall that Ms. Jones just outlined, when it ends, when it's completed or ends as it hits Cliff Drive, will there be another column, or does it just simply end? Do we have an end condition? What does that might look like?
Right. So I'm not sure if we have site photos still uploaded or in the file.
We have a site plan, and Tim has got his little icon right near it.
Yeah.
As the wall terminates right when it gets to Cliff Drive, I'm just curious about, will that have a architectural element, or does it just end in the landscaping?
So interestingly, it has a little portion, as I mentioned, I'm guessing maybe 5 feet long of an existing stone column in that location where those road names and addresses are. So the idea is just to continue it on the west side down. So that would still remain in place, and it already has an end column, so to speak.
Okay. And then the other thing that I could see from the drive yesterday is that the flat part of the site, where most of the projects are going to occur, looks like a lot of the vegetation has been cleaned up, et cetera. But the eucalyptus trees that show nearest Sea Ledge Lane that are there now, the biggest ones, if you can just keep going, those trees in there, they look like they need a lot of TLC. So I think you all said those are going to remain, but are those going to get cleaned up, or how are you going to handle? And that whole hillside now is just glorious with color of nasturtiums that, at this time of year, they take over everything. In your description of the landscaping on the bluff, the nasturtiums are horrible to try to get rid of if you want to get rid of. So how are you dealing with that edge of the conditions?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying we do have a plan to start doing some cleanup and mobilization in preparation for obtaining, demolition and grading permits. We do plan to trim up those eucalyptus trees and have had actual conversations with other neighbors adjacent on Cliff to clean them up. They do need some TLC, so that will be happening. And part of the plan to clean up all of that kind of frontage vegetation in addition to the new landscaping. And I'm not sure if Susan wants to speak to the nasturtium.
Nasturtium, as you know, is an annual. And the rest of the year, it sort of dies back. And the reason you're seeing some nasturtium this year is because it was a good rain year. But
my yard's the same way, so I understand. I have it in my yard also.
Yeah, I guess we both have it in our yards, and I look forward to it when it comes.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Jan?
Hi, thank you. I was hoping that you could zoom in the plans a little bit closer so we can see where you are requesting the modification for the front setback, and show me where that is, please.
So we already had the modification approved by the Planning Commission action. As I mentioned, when we first came in the project description we had a minor zoning, I'm sorry, I can't think of the word right now, a minor zoning exception for over height fences and walls. But what the exception is, essentially there's a double setback here because we have a setback front yard from Cliff Drive and we have a front yard setback from private Sea Ledge Lane. So the modification that the Planning Commission approved was to allow the proposed ADU and the garage, I believe you can see the setback lines there with the blue dashed lines, to encroach slightly within portions of the front yard, and then a slight reduction in the setback. So we have at least 10 feet from the edge of Sea Ledge Lane to the proposed fence and gate and corner of the garage. So that was the modification that was requested and approved.
Okay, so we don't even have to comment on that then?
You don't.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Janet. Lisa?
Yes, thank you, Brian. Mr. Chair, I have a couple questions. The first one would be probably to Susan, well, maybe, I don't know who. The splash block that was described as receiving the water that comes down the butterfly portion of the standing seam roof. Can you explain that a little bit?
You know, if we went to PDF page 17, you can see these two butterfly roofs. And so on the main residence, the butterfly roof has a short little drop at the left and the right from that roof onto the green roof. And again, part of the best practice is to, in each step that you can, you're introducing a slowdown of the water. So the green roof acts as a really good filter, kind of spongy and slowing that down. So we're just going to have essentially a stone and a backsplash, if you will, for that stone, so that we don't create, you know, splashing onto the building and waterproofing issues. And likewise, we would have a spout and a similar situation at the ADU onto the ground. And there's a pretty, in the civil plans, there's a pretty intensive collector for stormwater to then handle that in a slow fashion.
In other words, was something that didn't come up at this meeting, but the green roofs are like giant sponges, and they do collect water, and very slowly the water leaves the roof. So it does cut down on peak runoff. And that was one of the reasons for the green roof. It's also helpful with thermal insulation. So there are environmental reasons for the green roof.
Nice. Thank you. I guess my second question would be about, you did mention that there would be irrigation there, and I imagine at the peak of summer, once a month or so, it would probably need a little water, and I'm just curious what irrigation you'd be using.
Well, based on local experience, we would use a low precipitation rate spray heads that would be on for a very brief period of time. So, so that there would be no runoff. But because the roof, going sort of 4 or 8 inches in the.
It's deep, 8 inches.
It's an 8 inch, it's only 8 inches of a mineral soil. So it doesn't hang on to water for long periods of time.
Thank you. Also, one last question. I believe it was on the page of elevations that the south elevation that showed, I don't know if it was a glass railing in front of the building. In one of the elevations, it looked like, I mean, it wasn't described, but I was wondering what that was.
Perhaps you mean, let's see, is there something?
I do. It's
in front of the gray person standing in the shadow?
Okay, there's a number. If you could please zoom in, Timmy. And the yep, close. Number 23, is it? I know that that's the nook, or maybe it's just, you know what? It's your shadow. That's the end of your shadow. It looks to me like a glass railing, and that's just probably
right.
my illusion,
And
right?
There's a kind of a mullion in that elevation because there's a desk there on the inside of that little coffee nook. So there are no rail. There's a couple of little rails that'll be at those stairs there, but they'll just be handrails
Okay,
to avoid.
very good. Yeah, it's shadowing.
Yeah.
Thank you. End of questions.
Thank you, Lisa. Joe?
What is the roofing material of the butterfly section of the main roof and that roof over the main roof? What is it made out of? It's not the same color as the rest of the standing seam roof.
Oh, you know, the little cricket part you mean, or the fairly substantial cricket part?
Part that is wide in the middle and then ends up at a point at each end that drops onto the green roof.
Right. That's just a continuation of the same roofing material. We've kind of called it out with that other material, other color, because we might not have standing seams in that part. But it's hidden in the big valley there, if you will, of the butterfly.
Flat material, not standing seam. I mean, water has to flow to the north and to the west and the east.
That's right. So it's a kind of a counter ridge, if you will, to, that allows the water to go downhill to the right and the left as you're looking at it here. And so it's just much simpler not to have seams in there. So we'll use the same material, but it won't have the standing seams in there.
That's what I was asking. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe. Does anyone else have any questions? Fred.
Mr. Chair, yeah, this is a procedural question. Mr. Radke, and this is also a question to staff at the same time. It appears, just glancing at the drawings you've shown us, and we haven't seen them all, but it appears you're pretty close to completion. If the board so choose today, if we chose to give you project design approval, are you in a position to accept project final approval?
We are, because we're submitted to the building department now.
Okay. So I want to clarify to staff, even though it's not noticed today for final approval, do we have a problem if we do want to give it final approval?
It says project design approval on the minutes.
No, I understand that, but there's project design approval and there's final approval. Those are two different actions. Sometimes we give them both at once. And that's generally when it's posted that way. What I don't know from staff, is that a problem if we chose to do it today, even though it doesn't say final approval in the notice document? So that's a question. Matthew or Tim there?
Yes, hi. Oh, sorry. Ted's got this.
Yes. So to answer your question, Board Member Sweeney, the project can only receive project design approval today, since that was how it was noticed and that's what's on the agenda. It would, if you choose to give it project design approval today, you could make a motion to say it's ready for final approval and continue it to the next agenda, or, however you see fit.
Or we can continue to consent. Now, another question I have, this is another procedural question under the current circumstances. Normally, we've had a position when we do give a project final approval, we generally go through each sheet and the whole set of drawings to ascertain whether that looks like a complete set of drawings ready to go to the building department. And we certainly look at the details to make sure that they are in compliance with the design of the project design approval phase. And so ordinarily, when we're sitting either in consent calendar or at the full board, we just leaf through the sheets. Is that a procedure that we should continue to try to do under our current video system, or is there a suggestion from staff of how to deal with final approval review?
That's a really good question, Board Member Sweeney, Chair Miller. The project plans are posted on the city's website now during this remote, so I don't think that it is entirely necessary for you to go through every single sheet I would say that before the meeting, if you don't leaf through them during the meeting, you'll need to do so before the meeting to make your determination that they substantially conform to the PDA set. That would be my suggestion.
Okay, so just using your suggestion, that would mean if today we made a motion saying we're going to give it project design approval, and that we would like to give it final approval at the next available consent calendar, then the two folks looking at consent would be advised to look at the set of drawings beforehand, as you're suggesting. Is that correct?
Correct. We suggest it for every meeting, every hearing, every item, but especially if it's for final and it's on consent, we will remind them that they need to do their due diligence to make sure that everything substantially conforms.
Thank you.
Joe, do you have a comment?
Yes, it is. I'm on the consent calendar right now, and it's my standard procedure to go through each sheet that has been sent to us to make sure that they are a full set of plans before we give consent approval for project approval. And
Thank you, Joe.
In the past.
Okay, all right. Okay, I have a couple questions real quick. Can we, does everyone else have their questions done? This one's to Ken. I don't, you do have design approval. I have a thought, and what your thought is of the glass windows looking down over the slope there. Do you think there's a concern or an issue about a lantern effect with all that glass window looking down over the slope? What type of glass are you using, or do you have any way of addressing that or thoughts about that?
You might go to section 22, PDF page 22. Because of our setback from this is a kind of an interesting section because you can see the situation. So these houses that are down below are very, very substantially down below. Interestingly, and as you can imagine, they do as well focus their attention to the seaside. So all of those houses down below have the majority of their windows and so forth to the south as well. So if you were looking up, what you would see would be some underside of the ceiling there. And interestingly, as well as a part of our, making a good lighting design for the owners, we're really trying to avoid glaring hot spots for lighting and so forth. So I feel like this is very respectful, as the owners would like it as well. They do not want to be on display on this site, and they don't want the house to be either.
Great, thank you. The other question I have, it's more, I don't know, it's more for the landscape about the green roof. 5 or 10 years down the road from now, just out of my own curiosity, how do you maintain a roof like that as it ages? How does the wear and tear occur? Do you have a guarantee do you have a specific manufacturer that you go to, or how does that handled, or how do they deal with that?
Well, we might go with Hydrotech because they have a guaranteed system. But as it happens, I've been living with a green roof for 8 years now. Yes. And it's been great because I've learned so much. But that's why I'm proposing sedum, because that'll last nearly forever on that roof with the minimum maintenance.
What's sedum? Educate me with.
I'm sorry, sedum.
Yeah, what is that? Can you educate?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's a small, it's a succulent with very small leaves or pieces. And the recent green roofs, I think you're seeing more of them now, not only because of watershed management, but in Germany and England, they pioneered a different way of doing green roofs where you don't need a lot of soil depth. And the sedums are what are typically used. Well, actually, in some cities like Chicago, green roofs are mandatory, and it's just the plant that does best under these circumstances because it's succulent. And but I can speak from direct experience that they're pretty low maintenance actually, and they have those advantages of noise insulation, temperature insulation. Roofs can get to be 100 plus degrees. A green roof never gets to 80. And then the stormwater management, and it's kind of fun because your green roof hangs on to the water, and then for more than 24 hours after a rainstorm, you can watch well, in our case, water still coming down the rain chains.
Wow, interesting. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Chair Miller, your question also might have been about the roof membrane or closure itself. It's very well protected by various root barrier layers and drainage layers and so forth. So interestingly, it is very, very well protected from any mechanical interference or stepping or UV or fire. So what we have found is that the green roof is the safest part of any roof. It's always it's going to be some flashing thing somewhere in a nook or a cranny is where somebody might have a problem. Of course, our office, we pretty much never have any problems with that.
Of course
not. Mostly because we usually have good contractors.
But the other thing that studies of green roofs also reveal that it's really the UV damage that leads to the breakdown of roof material, and so the green roofs do protect the actual waterproofing from UV light.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very interesting. If we don't have any more questions, I'm going to move it to comments. Does anyone have any comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'm going to suggest we do as we started to do at our last meeting.
Okay.
When we get to comments, if you could just alphabetically go down the list and see if people have comments.
Okay, so do we have Lisa James? Do you have any comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to comment that the project is very sensitive to the environment and the topography. And I find the accessory building and all the components to be supportable. And I think it's a great improvement to what's there, and I look forward to seeing the execution of a green roof right there. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Jan Farrell.
I'm totally in support of this project.
Great, thank you very much. Joseph Motisha.
Yes, I like the project. I think it's great that the owners are also putting some great amount of work into widening the road and thinking about their neighbors. That road could remain the same and nobody could touch it and it would stay the same. And I think there's a lot of effort putting into that road and the retaining wall.
Great, thank you. Robert Richards.
I'd like to give the project positive comments. I reviewed the landscape plan and I think the choice of planting is great. It's going to work well in the area. I appreciate that you brought additional details regarding how the bluffs are going to be addressed in terms of planting. I think that the incorporation of the green roof is nice, and it's the whole project is sensitive to the area, so I'm in full support.
Great, thank you. Fred Sweeney. Fred, are you there?
Sorry, I forgot to turn all this on. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify a few things. One is, I think when we get to a motion that the neighborhood should be defined as Sea Ledge Drive, Cliff Drive, to the west at the first pullout overlook, and to the south as the first major turn in the road. And then with regards to the issue about the lantern effect of the proposed project, I believe we discussed that back a year ago at some length. And I would urge us, when we do make a motion, that on this particular project, that any lantern effect is not going to be over significant in contributing to the dark sky approach that the city has, in as much as demonstrated by the section just shown a little while ago, that this house really only can be seen from out in the ocean. So at nighttime, yes, if all the lights are on, it could be perceived as a lantern, as in a navigation element. So I think we need to be sure about that, because we have other projects where we have told, and we probably will be telling people, that they have too much glazing and that it is a lantern effect that can be seen from across the city. In this case, you only really see it from the ocean. So I think we should be clear if we make a motion for approval. And it also seems to me that we may be in a position to give this final approval, because the documents look complete to me, at least the ones I've seen so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Jonathan.
Yeah, I kind of love this house. I think the northern wall is just fantastic, and some of the roofing is really interesting. And I think it's going to be a dynamite house when it's done, just by little details like the design of the northern border and the roofing. So I'm in full accord with approving it.
All right, thank you. I believe that's everyone. My comments kind of go in concert with everyone else's, and I find the green roof very interesting, and I appreciate all the comments about the lantern effect. And I think Fred's pinpointing that as an issue is important as well, to be included on the minutes. So that being said, I believe we're ready for, if someone would like to draft a motion, you would please come forward.
I
Jan?
think I could do that, Mr. Miller, Chair Miller.
Okay,
So I would like to give this project design approval. It should come back to consent for final approval. We have the following notes to make: that we find the lighting is acceptable and will be enough for navigating the walkways and the entrance without impacting neighbors, and also while complying with the dark sky issues. The lantern effect of the south-facing wall will not impact the neighborhood or neighbors, because it is on the bluffs and it is not in anyone's direct view. The design of the home will enhance the neighborhood, and it's very conducive to the bluffs along there. The size, bulk, and scale of the building is appropriate for the lot and the neighborhood. The home is designed with quality materials and beautiful architectural details. The colors enhance the natural appearance of the bluffs. And I'd like to define the neighborhood as Sea Ledge Lane up to Cliff Drive in the neighborhood of the Mesa. The retaining wall that's going to be built to help enlarge the driveway or the private road of Sea Ledge Lane. The stone is appropriate for the area, and the grading that is proposed is minimal and maintains the conditions of the bluffs.
Very good. Thank you, Jan. Do I have a second?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll second with a request for the maker of the motion just to clarify the description of the neighborhood, that it's Cliff Drive to the first major curve in the road at Cliff Drive to the south, and to the overlook to the north or west, I guess that is, on Cliff Drive.
Thank you. Yes, add that in, please.
Very good. So, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, this is Mary, Commission Secretary. I will now take roll call. Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
All right, motion carried.
Thank you. So we're moving on to the next project. It's 924 Ameno Road. This is a new item, so I'm going to read into the record the description of the project. The proposal for 79 square foot of additions to the first floor and 523 square feet of additions to the second floor of an existing 1,569 two-story single unit residence with a 240 square foot one-car carport and 264 square foot one-car garage. Project includes an interior remodel, new decking, and a new main entry. The proposed total of 2,581 square feet of development on an 8,712 square foot lot in the Hillside Design District is 77% of the maximum allowed floor to lot area ratio. No final appealable action will be taken at this hearing. Project requires neighborhood preservation and hillside design and sloped lot findings. Project requires review by the staff hearing officer for the two interior setback modifications to allow proposed deck to encroach into the interior setback. Do we have a representative to introduce the project?
Yeah, this is Guy Nidek. Can
Hi.
you hear me? Hi.
Yes, I can hear you.
Great, great. Thanks for having this online. That's fantastic. So, did you want me to just go over the project briefly? Is that the?
Yes, please. Yes.
All right. So this is an existing home which has the main living spaces on the second level, and it's showing the front here with where the people are standing. That's the main entrance level, and then the main living level is up above. And so what we're proposing to do is it's a significant modification of the existing interior. And then the left portion of the drawing on the existing deck is where that addition is going to be occurring. So I don't know if it's easiest just to go to the next drawing that shows the existing and proposed, and maybe we can go back to this. So you can see here, the proposed is on the right, the existing is on the left. It's probably about 10 feet or so above the roof, or I'm sorry, above the road, Himino Road. And the encroachments that we're asking for are on the right-hand side where it says proposed deck. And that's really based on it being an existing side yard setback of 7 feet. And we would just be continuing that deck along that 7-foot line. There was a prior project proposed for this project or for this site, and it was a similar request at that point that was granted. And on the other side of the property, the existing deck encroaches into the side yard setback by 2'6". And what we're proposing to do is follow that same line for the addition for the second floor. So the scope of the work visually from the outside, although it's pretty difficult to see this property from the road, is to add what you're seeing in front of the building. But if we go to the next drawing, this is the first floor where there's an existing garage and a carport. And what we're proposing to do is keep the existing garage, and we're adding the entry that you see on the right-hand side, and then with a spiral staircase to the upstairs. And then we're adding a bathroom to the lower level in that vicinity. And then we would be also adding an access door to the right near the fireplace in order to access the storage area that's under the house. And then if you went up one more level, the next drawing, please. You can see the existing house has, mainly the bedrooms on the left, and then what was the living room on the right. And so what we're proposing to do is put the master bedroom in the area to the right. So the dining room becomes the alcove in the master bedroom, and the kitchen becomes the master bedroom. And then what that allows us to do is to create basically a kitchen living room. It's like a great room across that area, and then do a number of different improvements in the rear bedrooms of the house to make them, have their own baths and so forth. And essentially add these vaulted spaces, and then follow the deck line as well, so that we have a deeper deck where we can have some furniture on it, one portion, and then a deck where you actually go behind the sunshade devices on the front elevation to get into the master bedroom area and that deck area. So there's a large deck off the master bedroom, large deck off the living room. And then for the next page, this shows that there's very few walls remaining. It's a pretty significant demolition plan, but we're again working with the owners to allow this to occur. But you can see where the encroachments are occurring again. The next page, please. So you can see in the elevations that the area to the left in the top elevation is where the new great room is, and it extends back into the kitchen. And then looking from the other side, that's the view along the side yard. And basically what the existing house is it's a board and bat house. And the above this rectangular window, which is now in the kitchen, there was about that's where the building was about 14 feet high. The house is now about 23 feet high from the carport to the top of the living room to that eave. And so that's where it gained most of its height, but there is an existing railing on it. So it's, above the existing floor, it's probably added about, the overall height change is about 8 feet for the building from the railing. So then if we go to the next elevation, this is the front of the house here, where you can see the stair tower right in the middle with the spiral staircase going to the upstairs. And then there's the wraparound deck on the front left where the great room is. The back, the shed roof that's along the back gets some clear story windows added to it and a small loft. And the existing gabled roof to the right behind the sunscreen is going to be a standing seam metal roof. And that's the existing roof at that point, and that's an existing fireplace to the right. And then we have some decorative elements down below where the first floor is. And then the next plan, please. You can see here in the sections the main living space. There's the living area, and then the kitchen in the back, and then there's the loft showing in a portion of it, and then the rear bedroom as well. And so you can see how it works in relation to the site, and how the downstairs works in relation with the carport and so forth to the second level. Next drawing, please. Is that the last one? Is that 8? Yeah. So And there's the height line that's permitted in this district. And so we still remain significantly below that. So could you go back to the cover sheet then? So that's basically the scope of the project. So if there's comments, questions, I'm more than happy to respond.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Did we have any comment, public comment or emails?
Mr. Chair, we could just, thank you, Timmy. Anyone who's interested in commenting on this project, you just need to raise your hand with the hand icon and I will call on you. And I do not see anyone who's raised their hand at this moment, so I'll give it back to Ted if there's been any written comment.
This is Ted Hamilton. I am checking once more for written public comment. Please bear with me while I pull any written public comment up. Hang on.
And pardon me, this is just a reminder to the applicant, if you don't mind muting yourself when you're not speaking, and so we don't pick up background noise. Thank you.
Okay, this is Ted Hamilton again. We do have 2 items of public comment, written public comment that were submitted. First is from Chao Pang. The comment has concerns with the compatibility of such a large home that might change the character of the neighborhood, and has concerns about possible view impact. And the commenter asks, is it possible to erect poles and lines to provide a visual display of how the remodel and addition might impact the neighbors? Okay, and the second item from a neighbor on Jimeno Road. This public commenter would like clarification on a couple of points. First question is, how much taller is the highest point of the remodeled roof when compared to the highest point of the existing unremodeled roof, which isn't currently shown on the plans? And second, it would be helpful if the applicant could please submit an overlay drawing that clearly shows how much taller the highest point of the proposed remodeled roof is when compared to the highest point of the existing unremodeled roof as viewed from the east elevation.
Thank you. Bring it back to the board. Do you have any response to that guy, by the way?
Yes, for the first comment, I read that letter as well, and the interpretation from the person was that the project didn't meet the percentage of site coverage that was in excess of the 80 or 85%. And the numbers that he was looking at in the table related to the total when you included the carport and the garage. And so I think that's why he was getting such high numbers. So the project actually is below 80% in terms of the allowable square footage in the property. Okay. And then the other comment was and we responded to it on the cover sheet on the lower left. It's that the existing height right now is 14 feet 9 inches at its highest point, and the proposed height maximum is 22 feet 8 inches.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the
indicated
board.
On that sheet. And then if you look at the, okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. If you want to finish your statement, please do.
No, I'm just saying there's a drawing, I believe it's in the section or in the elevations that shows the height limit for the property going above the house. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring it back to the board for questions. I see Fred is up first. Fred, you have a question?
Yes, this is to staff, and I'm going to hold up a document here. See, you can see it. It says City of Santa Barbara Design Review Applicants Submittal Checklist. And what I want to know from staff is that still in effect?
Chair Miller and Board Member Sweeney, in what sense are you asking if that's still in effect?
Well, I'm asking it in for a complete submittal. And in this submittal requirement, which I assume is still in effect, it says that the applicant shall give us existing site or building elevations, and it will give us photographs of around the entire building and the site, none of which is in this presentation. Is that correct?
That is correct. It could be a question or an issue of the situation that we're in. We're also, I'm not helping with, we have new staff. It might be a training issue. Did the applicant for sure not provide photos, or is that?
The photos were submitted as a part of the project.
Okay, and they were submitted online?
I believe so. I think they were submitted in the to the zoning department and then as a part of the overall submittal. So I don't know if it was my understanding that they had been uploaded, but I can confirm.
Yeah, let me take a look and see if we have them in our system. If so, I can send them to Timmy and he might be able to get them up quickly, the photos at least. Elevations, while we ask for them, it is concept review. It's not necessary for a concept review, but would be required for PDA. So let me just check on those photos for you all.
Yeah, and for that, the only thing
I am sorry, but if you read this document, it says elevations are required when you file this in for concept review. It's what it says in the words. So I'm
right, and that document is, I apologize, Mr. Sweeney, but that document is not
doesn't help us.
One
We're
speaker
trying to
at a
review
time.
the project.
Okay, well, I apologize that you don't have the elevations. I am trying to get the photos for this concept review, and I will do the best that I can to get that for you.
Okay, and then a question to the applicant. You've indicated by your demolition plan that much of the existing house is going to be taken down. Is that correct?
There's a lot of relocating of some of the interior walls, but the perimeter building and the existing foundation are going to be maintained. It's basically to demo out and create larger spaces in the bedroom area of the house.
And the lower level, the part of the lower level that's into the hillside, that's concrete block or concrete, or
it has about a 3-foot stem wall, and then it has a frame wall sitting on top of that.
That's up against the mountain, the higher side of the site, correct?
Yeah, so there's a 3-foot retaining wall, yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Fred. Jan.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions. So first of all, looking at this picture, is that a glass railing that you're proposing on the deck?
It's a cable railing.
Okay.
A little closer. Okay. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you. That answers my first question. My second question is how we have some guidelines as far as decks encroaching into the property lines. So what's the distance from the upstairs deck to the property lines?
It's 7 feet. On the side there's only one side where a deck is encroaching. Okay. And it's something that we had gone through with the zoning group, and given the existing topography, they recommended that it was okay because it doesn't look into a neighbor's yard or doesn't, you know, compromise any of the views to the lower neighbor.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Lisa, please.
Thank you. Yes. I am curious what the exterior hardscape surface is that you show around the building, and if there's going to be any landscape screening. I'm pretty sure that your cover sheet is a little misrepresentative of how things are actually going to look, but it seems pretty stark there.
Yeah, I think if we can find the photos, it'll be really helpful because there is no landscaping proposed at this point for the project because it's heavily landscaped to begin with. And it has, you know, great stone walls on the driveway and stone walls acting as small retaining walls moving back into the property. There's also quite a bit of vegetation, tree lines on both sides of the residence.
Do you have an idea of what the surfaces are surrounding and coming up to the house? The drawing.
Right, we're using the existing asphalt driveway coming up to the house, and then we would use a concrete apron going into the stairwell.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So, Matisha.
Of course, go back to the site plan. How close is that bedroom, master bedroom deck to the property line, and how close it is to the next door neighbors? You stated that that it is not infringing on their privacy. It looks like it's down in the lower right-hand corner of the deck. We see the right there. Can't be more than 15 feet, less than 15 feet away from the house next door.
Yeah, at that location, you're actually above the roof of the adjacent house, so you're not looking at even the side of the house. You look over their roof.
But you're standing right, almost right on top of their roof. Anywhere in that house, you know, the views are negative, but the sound is not. You're standing right there in the corner, the southeast corner of that proposed deck.
Joe, please limit your comments to questions and hold your comments for the comments. Hold that thought if you have a comment.
All right. I thought I was mixing comments with, thank you. I will. Thank you.
Keep that pearl of.
Any question? The location of that deck.
Okay, are you any other questions, Joe?
No, that's fine.
Hi, Matthew, do you have something you want to say?
Yes, Mr. Chair Miller, I unfortunately have some bad news. It does not appear that we have the photos that the applicant is referring to in our system. The document that Mr. Sweeney did bring up does lay that out. That's typical information that we would request for the board to be able to make a decision, and ultimately it is the board's decision whether or not they have enough information to comment, provide meaningful comment on design. And so if you do not feel you have that, you can make that part of your motion. But we can continue to go through questions and comments at this time, and I apologize for that.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to, Robert Richards, do you have any comments or questions?
I don't have any questions. I guess actually one question that's coming up is, with adding on this new addition, are you going to have to deal with any stormwater management issues, or has that been looked at, and where would that function on this site?
We're still in tier 1, and it's we're not increasing our footprint on the property. It's basically the same footprint, only we're up above now with the existing house.
Even with adding the additional roof space, that doesn't impact the...
Well, right now, that same roof space is a deck.
Okay, and then you're parking a car underneath that currently, and that's how it is going to stay used as a garage?
I'm sorry?
Underneath where you're doing that addition, where you're the main floor addition, that is going to continue to be used as a carport?
Yes.
And then I'm just kind of curious, what are those like screen elements that you're showing on the edge of the carport?
It's just basically to screen off where the track area is for the building. So part of it's structure, the rear one is for structure and the front one is more screening. And it's just a better resolution of what screening they have there in the existing building. And I apologize that the photos aren't available. I thought they would be.
Then looking at the front of the house here, you're showing flagstone, but the plan is saying that that's all existing asphalt that's going to remain?
Yes.
And is there a fire pit proposed in the front there?
Is there what? No, that was the draftsman's, I guess the Liberty or whatever they wanted to, they took some architectural license there. So.
Okay. I think those, yeah, you're not proposing any landscape, so I don't have any questions related to that, but I guess that's summarizing my questions for now.
Thank you,
Robert. Jonathan, do you have any questions?
I don't have any. Thank you.
Thank you. My only question is, and it's not really a question, it's a comment. I don't think these plans are complete to give us a complete determination, but I will bring it to the comments. I'll go, Fred, what do you have?
Oh, I had a question before we go to comments.
Oh, sure.
Could we go back to the site plan, please? I don't know what drawing that is. I do recall having seen this project before. I think the applicant mentioned that there was another project that was on this site came before us. And in that discussion, we talked a lot about the hedges. And what I don't see on this drawing, and I don't know, I was out there yesterday walking the street, and I couldn't tell, there's extensive hedges between both neighbors on the west and east, but I couldn't tell which properties those hedges were on. Do you know, Mr. Goodnick?
It varies. The ones to the east are on the adjacent property owner's property, and the lower ones are on this property. And the ones to the west, it's a combination in front of the house where they're all on the this property. And then as you move back, it seems to go back and forth. They've been there for a long time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Fred. So I'm going to go into comments now. I'm just going to go down the list. And so the first person on my list is Lisa James. Do you have any comments?
Not at this time. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Lisa. Jan Farrell, do you have any comments?
The only comment I can make at this time is that I will find it very hard to make any sort of motion at this time looking at what I'm seeing. It's really challenging to understand what's really going on here, for me anyway.
All right, thank you. Joseph Matisha, comments?
Yes, I would like to, I agree with Fred. I think and Jan, I think we definitely need some elevations here to carry on with our procedure and any recommendations. And I would also like to see maybe the deck brought back away from the east property line, so be not so overbearing on top, sit right on top of the house next door. That's my only comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Richards, do you have any comment?
Yeah, so I agree. I think we need additional information, the existing elevations. I find just from looking at what we have here, like the roof line of this house, just the proposed house seems really jarring and kind of, it's tough for me to kind of understand how this all fits together with what is existing there and what's proposed. And then the rendering on the front page, it's just kind of challenging because it's conflicting with what's actually going on there, and it kind of makes the front of the house look like it's like a living space, but then the front of the house is actually functioning as a driveway. So I think that the overall presentation of what's going on here needs to be kind of refined a little bit to understand how this home functions and what's really going on. And then I also agree with the comment that decks should probably, you know, abide by our guidelines of staying out of 15 feet. So that's my comments for now.
Thank you. Fred Sweeney, comments?
Yes, Mr. Miller, thank you.
Yes.
Matthew, I'm sorry if I spoke harshly a few minutes ago, but I've been on this board for 9 years and this problem has not gone away. Where we get drawings that are submitted to us that aren't in accordance with the filing requirements from the city's own documents. And this is not the first time it's occurred. I understand there's new staff, there's new people. Both of you are sitting in here temporarily, but it's really frustrating. And I've brought this up to staff many times now, and it still hasn't been corrected. So I hope that someone puts that on the top of their list. To get to this project, ordinarily, yes, I would have introduced a motion to delay any review of this project until the documents were completed. But unfortunately, you know, given the time we're in and the frame and the fact that this board had to be in abeyance for almost a month and a half or 2 months, we need to allow people to move forward. But regards to this project, I agree with most of my colleagues' statements. One of the things that we've experienced on several projects is we get projects where they're going to do extensive remodeling. They show us a demolition plan, and then we go out to the site and find out that they've taken the whole building down. And generally, it's not because they didn't think about it. It's because once you get in taking stuff down, particularly in older constructions, you find dry rot, you find termite damage, whatever. And ultimately, the whole thing is gone, and then you're reframing. So I think we need to be cautious about trying to figure out, you know, does this, in addition to the new and the old and so forth. So I'm going to take less of that on this project because it looks like a lot of it is going to come down. The only reason it's important for us to see the existing elevations as far as this board is concerned, and it's a requirement of when you file with the building department, you have to have them, very clear. But the reason that it's important for us to have them, and it's probably more important for the public to be able to see them, so we can compare the size, bulk, and scale of what's being proposed against what is there currently. So I know the applicant indicated, well, our top elevation is at such and such feet, and the current one is in such and such feet, but people don't, you know, they have a hard time reading that. So for the public, it's really important. So that's an important thing. The other thing I detect from this presentation is there is an extensive amount of glass facing south. And contrary to anyone else's thought, you can in fact see a lot of this house, perhaps not driving by on Camino Road, which for the most part in the Riviera, that happens a lot because you're paying attention to the road because it's so narrow and you don't want to get hit. But a lot of people walk their neighborhoods in the Riviera, and I got out and walked the street yesterday, and you can see a lot of this house from the street. This is not going to be hidden. Yes, there's landscaping there, etc. What I was really looking at is how much can be seen between properties. That's why I asked the question about the hedges and whether or not there's agreement between the east and west property owners about how they keep those hedges trimmed or not trimmed, because that's an issue we run into a lot between neighbors, particularly on the Riviera. And that zeroes in on the deck that's coming off the master bedroom. And unfortunately, we have a conflict between the zoning review that's in the zoning code and in our guidelines. The zoning code, and the applicant's absolutely correct, is decks can be or within the setback line requirements on properties. Sometimes there aren't, and that's why they ask for a modification. But in our guidelines, if you go to the guidelines, and I think it's page 69 through 72 or something, in the guidelines for the Single Family Design Board, it clearly says the board has the obligation to determine whether or not in a particular neighborhood situation, a deck can exceed 15 feet from the property line. The guideline says keep decks back away 15 feet from the property line. So my colleagues, I think, are concerned certainly about that proposed deck that would be new on the master bedroom side that's being proposed. It's a different kind of argument because there's always been a deck on the south west corner. So that would be up for discussion. With regards to the amount of glass, if the applicant was watching the presentation before this item today, you would have seen we were very specific about approving a project with a large amount of glass because of the way and in nature and where the house was sitting and on the property was sitting. In this case, this glass can be seen not only from the road, but from neighbors on the bottom side of the Riviera, and it can be seen from all over the city. So I'm concerned that there is an extraordinary amount of glazing on the south side. And then I think that because of the nature of the contemporary architecture that's being presented, at least as we see it now, is very awkward. And I don't know whether it's the presentation format. And you'll notice behind me, I have some renderings of houses that I've worked on in trying to make presentations of what things look like. And that's always helpful to have renderings that everyone can kind of like clearly see, and also keep in mind that when you're making these presentations as an applicant and designer, that you're not only presenting to those of us who are architects and understand how to read these drawings, but you're presenting them to the public and lay members of the community who not necessarily always understand how to read drawings. Those of us have had careers and been trained in it. So right now, this design looks really awkward in a lot of areas, particularly the south elevation, particularly in the rendering or the definition of window fenestrations and door openings around the stairwell that's coming from the driveway, etc. The other thing I noticed yesterday is that the asphalt driveway is in need of a lot of TLC. And to spend this kind of money to move forward and not address that driveway is concerning. So that would be something certainly to look at. There were also several cars parked into this driveway yesterday. As you know, up on this road, there's very little road parking. So I'm always concerned when we look on Riviera projects about how people are parking and whether or not zoning has checked the requirements of parking for single family on this particular site, whether carport and other covered spaces are required and how much additional parking are allowed in the setback. My understanding from zoning is that parking in the setback line is not allowed, and that quite clearly shows on this drawing, and it showed yesterday when I was up looking at the site from the street. We never walk on anyone's property, but we certainly make an evaluation of projects being proposed from the street. So at this point, I find a lot of things that are lacking in explanation and contemporary architecture that doesn't quite resolve itself in a way that I find comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Jonathan Ziegler, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I can't get my picture up, but anyway, yeah, I agree with what Jan and Fred have said. That is a lot that I just don't know from this presentation, and I'm glad to hear they're pushing for more inputs. So that's about my comment.
Thank you. And my comment is pretty much in agreement with my colleagues. Things that stand out is it's incomplete in terms of what the existing structure looks like. I'd like to see a little better, well, of course, with the existing neighborhood, and that would be included in the photographs. The board has got concerned. There's been questions regarding parking. The board is concerned regarding your glazing, and there's a concern about the overall style of the architecture. But I think part of it, this problem is that we can't see what's existing and we can't really give a good feel of the neighborhood. Those are my only comments. So that being said, can someone draft a motion appropriate to address these issues?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Irma, hi.
Good afternoon, Edwin Sweta. I wanted to just address your board with respect to the motion that will be made. First of all, I just want to say that we appreciate the comments, especially from board member Sweeney, and we will do our due diligence to get projects before you that have cleared the submittal checklist. As you can appreciate also with this new format, things do get a little bit more difficult to pull together. But that's not an excuse, that's just the reality. I wanted to also just impress upon you that when you make the motion, whoever does that, please provide as much direction as to what you would like to see come back. Of course, we will make sure that the project, when it comes back, it will, we can check off the boxes on that submittal checklist. But if there are other elements or plan sheets that you would like to see come back with that project, please state that so that we can make sure that they come in. Like, we know that we are missing photographs. We know that you want to see elevations, perhaps a context of the neighborhood and parking and that kind of thing. But if there are any other materials that you would like to see, this would be the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Irma. Appreciate it. Okay, who would like to draft a, let's see, no finable, so it's comments only, is that my understanding? It's appeal.
Yes, that is correct. This is here for a concept review.
Thank you very much. So would someone like to make a motion with comments?
Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Thank you, Fred.
If we could get the drawings back up so we go one sheet at a time, please. Thank you. So I would make a motion that this return to the full board with the following comments. That the applicant return with required photographs in the neighborhood. We would hope that there would be sufficient photographs from the street level and also sufficient photographs all the way around the house. I know that will be difficult given the terrain, et cetera, but as much as you can show us of the existing site would be great. Not only the house itself, but also the backyard and the hedges. If possible, we'd like to request a drawing that delineates where the hedges are on the east and west side of the property as to whether or not they're on the adjacent properties or not, just so we have an understanding of what folks are going to be seeing from either side. That, if we can go to the next sheet, please. That the applicant share with us on the site plan consideration for how they're going to deal with the existing paving on the driveway. That the applicant indicate any potential change in landscaping. And the only reason I say that is I do understand a lot of the site is already adequately landscaped, but sometimes when construction occurs, there is areas that need to be replanted. So we need some idea whether or not that will occur because it would require a landscape plan. Next plan, please. Let's keep going down to the first set of elevations. I think that's better. There we go. Okay, thank you. So the board would like the applicant to reconsider the deck coming off the proposed new master bedroom location that's to the south, and that it be kept 15 feet away from the property line. That the board would encourage the applicant to continue the use and suggestion of cable rails as a railing system for the proposed decks. That the applicant on this east elevation clearly indicate if existing window openings are to remain or there are to be new openings. That the applicant be prepared to share a little further of what appears to be chimney caps are going to be constructed of or finished in. That the applicant consider framing views from rooms with less aggressive glazing as proposed in the east elevation. That the applicant indicate on the west elevation what windows are located, and perhaps it's better to do it in plan form, that look upon the other property so that we can assure ourselves of any privacy issues that might be occurring. Just so the applicant understands and the homeowner understands, the board does not have the authority to limit or make comment about private views. That's not within our purview, but we are advised that we do pay attention to privacy issues between properties. The main course of our work is to assure that public views are maintained. Let's go to the next set of elevations, please. The board will be interested in the color and type and spacing of the proposed standing seam roofs, and certainly how they're going to be ventilated, if in fact they will be, or the attics are ventilated. The south elevation, again, needs clarification. The board is not conducive of the amount of glazing shown on this elevation, in as much as that it will have a tendency to have a lantern effect across the city and certainly within the neighborhood. We will be interested in exterior lighting, not only on landscaping or ground or on the building, on the walls themselves, on the house itself, but also any downlighting that might be anticipated from the underside of overhanging roof areas. Next slide, please. And that on this drawing, it might be helpful if the applicant can show us a section going through the east-west direction, in addition to this section, and also indicate very roughly the height of trees, existing trees to remain and hedges to remain so that we can get some understanding of how much of the site may continue to be camouflage between the neighbors on each side and at the rear of the property. And I think I've covered everything unless I've forgotten somebody can help me. That's my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, one quick comment. Personally, I'm uncomfortable making any final determination on the style of the house because of the incomplete information, but I'll proceed forward. But I know Robert brought up the issue about the detailing around the carport, those slats or whatever they were. Do you want to include some kind of verbiage about that?
Whoops, sorry. Yes, Mr. Chair. I keep clicking the wrong stupid thing. Yes, we would encourage the applicant, we can make this part of the motion, we would encourage the applicant to be able to clarify screening materials, both vertical and horizontal, materials anticipated and colors anticipated. Don't know that we need to see details, but we need to have a better understanding. Sometimes applicants will bring us photographs of other applications of similar material on other projects. That's always very helpful.
Thank you, Fred.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay, so you seconded the motion, Jan?
Yes.
So do we need to hear the motion again, or is everyone satisfied with it? If you're satisfied, or
Chair Miller, I believe that since the revised motion was noted as a revised motion and it was seconded again, that will suffice.
Okay. Well, so, the reason I asked is anyone wanted clarification of hearing the motion again, but it was rather long, so we'll make that suffice. So can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, this is Mary, Commission Secretary. We have Chair Miller.
Yes.
Vice Chair James.
Yes.
Board Member Farrell.
Yes.
Board Member Motisha.
Yes.
Board Member Richards.
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney.
Yes.
And Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried.
Thank you. Is there a motion, is there a mention of whether it comes back in 2 weeks or indefinitely? I'm sorry, does that need to be mentioned?
At the beginning of the motion, Mr. Sweeney mentioned that the item should be continued indefinitely to return to full board.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, let's move on to item number 3. You were scheduled for 4:45 or a little late. It's 8:43 Calle Cortita. This is a new item, so I'm going to read it into the record. Proposal includes abatement of violations listed on ZIR 2016-00435 and as-built lower level will be converted to an accessory dwelling unit under a separate building permit. A new second level deck and first level deck at the rear of the residence is also proposed, as well as enclosure of an as-built outdoor kitchen and a new master bathroom. A minor zoning exception is requested for the trash enclosure located within the front and interior setbacks. Project will result in 447 square feet of new floor area for a proposed total of 2,089 square feet on a 6,915 square foot lot and 72% floor area ratio. Project design approval is requested. Project requires neighborhood preservation and hillside design and slope lot findings. A minor zoning exception is requested to allow a trash enclosure to be located within the front and interior setbacks. Hello, can you please introduce yourself and show us your project? And I think you need to unmute yourself.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Okay, so Dylan Henderson, Salt Architecture, and thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
So am I ready to present now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this project, really a lot of it is cleanup. It's obviously an existing home up on Calle Cortita. There were quite a few things done by the previous owner that were not permitted. And so the goal of the project was, one, to clean those things up. So if you look at the survey, for instance, you'll see that there were some things that were built into the side yard setback. And obviously we have these zoning violations that the current owner wants to clean up. And so all of those things are being cleaned up in this submittal. And really the goal of this submittal is to get the second level deck approved. Their living level is up on the top level of the house, and they want to increase the deck area as they don't really have a usable yard for their small children. And so the proposal really is about this second level deck on the rear elevation of the house, which is you're not able to see it from the street. The other portion of this is obviously the accessory dwelling. There's a bathroom down there, there's a bedroom that was built down there, and there's an outdoor kitchen. And the concept is we're going to enclose that. We're going to make it an accessory dwelling unit for this family. But that really is, I guess that's not part.
Hold on, Dylan.
Yeah.
When you're explaining, can you kind of go to the sheet where you're explaining it so it's just a little easier to know what we're looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to do it on my larger monitor here. Okay, so if you go to page 10 of the PDF, it's sheet A 2.1B. It's page 10. Okay, thank you. Detail 3, the lower right corner, you'll see a call out for a new 240 square foot deck. Right. So that is really what is driving the design review board portion of this application. Is we have a second level deck that's 17 feet. And all of those things which kick this into design review. On this same sheet, if you go over to detail 2 in the upper left-hand corner, Brian. Yeah, that's the lowest level of the house, and that's down below the street level. This is the area where we're going to enclose this entry for the ADU, so it has its own private entrance for the accessory dwelling unit, and this enclosed kitchen, which is already in place, actually. But this isn't really a part of the design review board purview because ADUs don't get reviewed. So really what we're looking at is the minor zoning modification for the trash enclosure up on the street level, and then this deck up on the upper level of the home. And so if you want to go to the next sheet, Brian, which is page 11, A 3.1. If you zoom out, I can kind of talk you through this. So in the upper left-hand corner, detail 2, elevation west existing, you'll see an arrow point, up there in the upper left corner of that. You'll see an arrow pointing to this trash enclosure that's currently existing. And that's what the modification, the minor zoning modification is, to keep this trash enclosure up at the street level. And then all the other notes on here are indicating the things that are going to be removed or mitigated relative to the zoning violations. And so that we're going to be cleaning up that application. If you go to the next page, page 12, you'll see the roof plan. We don't have any consideration of adding more roof area. If you go to the next page, page 13, right, this shows you the proposed second level deck in detail 3, elevation south. That's the new second level deck up on the upper level that's really being considered from a design review standpoint. Yeah. And so that in itself is really what we're doing, is we're cleaning up zoning violations that were on the project, asking for this minor zoning modification for the trash enclosure at the street level, and then this proposed deck on level 2.
Great. Is that your presentation?
It is. Thank you.
Thank you. Did we get any emails or public comment?
Chair Miller, Ellen Kokindo, there are no members of the public attending right now, but I'll ask Ted if there was any written comment.
Chair Miller, there is no written comment for this project.
All right, thank you. I will bring it back to the board. Does anyone have questions? So I'm going to go down the list and speak your name, and then please come forward if you have a question. Lisa James.
I do not have questions. Oh, actually, yes. I couldn't see how far the deck was located from the side property line. Can you let us know that?
Can you show us that, Dylan?
Yeah, so let me just go.
Yep.
Go to the sheet here. So if you go to page 7 of the PDF. Yeah, so you'll see the 10-foot interior setback called out on the east side.
Could we zoom in, please?
Where the new deck is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so I'm going to pull that dimension for you while we're on the phone, but we're well outside of the 10-foot setback on that east side, but I'll get an actual dimension for you right now from property line.
Okay.
While I'm getting that, Brian, if there's more questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, Jan Farrell, you have a question? Yes.
Hi, yeah. Dylan, can you tell us, it's hard to tell from the drawing, what is the railing material proposed for on the deck?
So it will match what's there. If you go to, here, let me get you to the photos here. If you go to page 3 of the PDF, Brian.
I'm not manipulating the drawings. I appreciate the credit, but
oh, sorry,
doing it.
Okay. Yeah, so you see in that there's a photo where it says existing deck to remain. That railing is not code compliant because it's greater than 4-inch separation between those horizontal rails. So we're going to be changing that on the proposed elevations. We're going to be changing that to a vertical rail. It's still going to be made out of wood, but we're going to change it to a vertical rail so that kids can't climb on it. They have 2 young kids, and it will obviously be compliant with the 4-inch rule, but we'll be going from horizontal to vertical on a 4-inch spacing out of wood with wood square newel posts and balusters.
Is there any way we could see the drawing enlarged to show that, just so I can get a better understanding in my head what that's going to look like?
Absolutely. If you go to A3.2, oh, sorry, page 13, sorry. And zoom in on elevation 2, elevation east at the bottom there.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm actually just noticing that bottom rail height is greater than 4 inches. So just in your mind, I apologize for that, but in your mind, imagine that bottom rail being 4 inches above the deck surface, and that's what that'll look like.
Okay, and it'll be wood painted to match the rest of the trim and things like that.
Correct, correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. That was my question.
Thank you.
Sure.
I want to bring it back to Lisa. We didn't complete with her. Did you get all your questions answered, Lisa?
Well, it looks like it's close to 20 feet from the property line, just through interpolation. So I think I answered my own question. Is that correct, Mr. Henderson?
Yeah, I have it dimensioned right now. So the property line is at a bit of an angle. So it goes from 18'9" at the southern corner of the deck to 18, well, it looked pretty square across the deck. So 18'6" to 18'9". So you're very, very close. Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks. That's all for now.
So I know the next person online was Joseph Matisha. Did you want to speak?
Yes. Are we looking at the west elevation right now?
No, that's the east elevation on the screen.
How could that be sorry. Right now on the screen is the west elevation.
No, it's the east elevation.
Okay, I always thought that elevation, I thought the ocean is, I'm where the ocean is and I'm looking at the house. That's the west elevation.
So if you want to go to, maybe I have a mistake, go to page 6 of the PDF, which is the survey. And there's the north arrow. So north, south, east. Do I have that mistaken? North.
The road is on the north. The road is on the.
Well, the road's really on sort of the east side. I had originally labeled all these things sort of northeast, north, south, northwest, and the board asked me to just keep it simple, north, south, east, west. So the road really is on the east side. That elevation really is the southeast elevation. So I guess it's really how you interpret it, but it's more east than west. But I can relabel the elevations for clarity, but you'll see that north arrow is, if you zoom out one click on your screen, you'll see the north arrow above the survey. Is.
Well, it seems pretty clear.
Okay, very,
yeah, sorry, Joe. I'll get that sort of cleaned up, but it's just because it's an obtuse sort of lot that's happening.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan Ziegler, question?
Yeah, how tall is that steel beam there already for supporting the deck? And how tall is that steel beam?
So the column?
Yes. Is that already in?
No, so the column that would be supporting the proposed second level deck?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you exactly how tall that is. In order for it to...
What page, can you show on the screen which page you're referring to that shows that column?
I saw it in one page, but I don't see it now.
No, if you go to page 13 of the PDF, it's elevations A 3.2, that sheet.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, he's referring to the new steel column to support that deck and column. So that column will be from the proposed ADU level will be 15'8".
That's it, okay. Okay, that's my question.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. Robert Richards, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I think it's pretty straightforward from what I understand. So no questions currently. Thank you.
Thank you. Fred Sweeney, do you have any questions? Fred there? Where'd Fred go?
Sorry, I'm talking and don't have anything on. Yes, I have questions for staff and the applicant. Could we go to the first, the site plan sheet, please?
It's page 7 of the PDF.
Okay. Oh, and Dylan, just a suggestion for convention purposes. What I've learned over the years when we have to deal with Santa Barbara North, which isn't the way we all think North is.
Right.
On your site plans, you can put the surveyor's north on there, but then put another north arrow that you then put design north on.
Okay.
Then you can refer to design south, east, and west, even though it's not in alignment. It just helps everybody make it a little simpler. Yeah, that's just helpful. So, but with regards to the site plan, one of the things, and this is a question or a comment to staff, this little road is a real big concern of mine with regards to firefighting. I'm sure that the fire department has looked at the end of this road, which is right in front of this house. There's a cul-de-sac or something that appears to be a cul-de-sac. In my mind, doesn't look wide enough for a fire truck to make the turn. But the issue is, I was out there yesterday, and I'm sure given the stay-at-home orders, it kind of looks that way most of the week. There was virtually no place to park because the whole little street was filled with cars, which makes it a kind of a one-way street because it's so narrow. And here we are allowing, and I know it's the state law, we're allowing an ADU to be put into this building. And I know that in the discussions of ADUs at council level, Council Snedden was very concerned about these narrow streets that we have throughout the city. And I'm just concerned that they may be concentrating and looking only at the Riviera, but not at these other locations. So I would hope staff brings this project to the fire department's attention. I know as a city, we don't have a lot of ways to deal with this. The state has said tough, but it is a concern. Kind of coming from that is going back to what appears to be an adjustment in parking. There is a carport, which I saw a little Jeep parked in yesterday. It doesn't look like, it looks like the end closest to the house has got storage under it, rather than being kind of the 16 or 18 foot deep carport. I wasn't quite sure whether some of that's supposed to come out as part of the zoning violation. And then right next to it, what appears to be a parking deck and is implicated on this proposed site plan as a parking deck. I assume that means the little gate and other things that's out there in front of the front door going into this house is going to be cleaned out, and that will be a parking space. Is that what's going on there?
That's correct. So part of the zoning violation was the storage unit built under the existing carport that you referred to, and the entire trellis actually that's over the second parking area that has that little enclosure gate, which is acting as kind of a play area for the couple's children. All of that has to come out. So the storage unit's coming out and the trellis is coming down. The gate's going out so that we can supply the 2 required parking spaces. That was really the impetus for the conversation about why they wanted the second level deck. Was if we're going to give that away at the front, we need to get something where we can have the kids on the same level as us. And that's where the conversation on the deck came up, because they are anxious to be compliant with the code and obviously with the zoning, and they're aware of the violations. So that's what is going to happen. Yes.
Okay, and they are not required to provide a parking place for the ADU?
Correct. I mean, we're within half a mile of public transportation, and we're not required to. I understand your concerns about the parking. There's a lot of areas in the city that are like that, but
yeah, those are issues that are outside of our pay grade.
Right.
But a question I would assume that staff will clarify for us. We do, in fact, we will want to make comment on the acceptability aesthetically of the carport and the parking area. I assume that's part of our purview. With regards to the ADU portion of the project, can we go down to the floor plan that shows the ADU?
Yes, so that's sheet 10, which is A 2.1B. Yep, and if you zoom into the upper left corner, detail 2, you'll see the floor plan.
Okay, so I'm just trying to clearly understand what is the ADU and what is part of the landscaping. Looking at the photographs that you provided, walking the site from the street the other day, it appears there's a chimney and a fireplace element down near that, what is going to be the ADU kitchen or is that the part being enclosed? It wasn't clear to me.
Right, so that the outdoor fireplace, I can get us the photo so everybody is clear what we're talking about. So if you go to page 4 of the PDF, Yeah. So what Fred is referring to is that little outdoor fireplace, and there is a chimney that goes above it. You can see in the photo that showing the mantle of the fireplace plus the little kitchenette that's existing. The kitchenette is going to be the portion that gets enclosed. The fireplace in that chimney is going to stay outside of what would be considered the ADU. So essentially the exterior wall of the ADU will be on the inboard side of the range that you see in that photo, if that makes sense.
And the overhead cover or trellis over the outdoor fireplace remains also?
That as proposed, yes. I mean, that's how it's proposed.
Then could we go back to the deck plan of the ADU, please?
Yep. So go back to page 13. I'm sorry. Go to sheet 10. Yeah.
Okay. Under Senate Bill 13, which passed January 1st on ADUs, it made further clarification on what the cities have purview and what they don't have purview on. And as I read it, and this is really a clarification question to staff that may not have the answer today, but may want to look it up. We have no purview of what the ADU looks on the outside, certainly not the plan that's presented on this sheet. But the way I read SB 13, the purview of ADUs is only to the livable area, and the livable area is defined under Senate Bill 13. And it does not indicate that outdoor walking areas, deck areas, etc., are part of that definition. Therefore, the way I read it, the deck that's being proposed here as a part of the ADU is in fact under our purview. So that's a question to staff. And I know that when staff and council was going through the emergency ADU ordinance back in January, that's a question I asked and I never heard what the answer might be because of how things are defined. I do know that earlier when we were discussing ADUs that we were told that the purview of the ABR or the single family design board goes up to the wall, the outside wall of an ADU. So in other words, landscaping, walkways, plantings, and decks, stairs, and so forth were under our purview. So we should have clarification of that so that when we do give this project design approval, we're making the appropriate decision. So that's a question to staff. On the shed that's being taken away on the north side, that I think shows maybe up on the site plan. When I walked out there yesterday, I noticed that shed and other sheds, but I couldn't figure out which was on which property. Can you clarify, please?
Yeah, so if you go to page 7 of the PDF. Okay, so the left-hand side, it says as-built storage. You zoom in on that left-hand side, yeah. There's a note there. That is on this property, and that is being removed.
Okay, because the doors are accessed through the other property. You look at it from the street. Okay, that's right. Clear. Thank you.
Fred, can you stop real quick? From your previous question, Ted came up. Did you want to speak, Ted, or do you want to wait?
Chair Miller, Board Member Sweeney, I just wanted to try to answer that question regarding the purview of the SFDB as it relates to sort of accessory portions of the structure, including decks. I believe, Board Member Sweeney, that your interpretation of the law is correct, that the SFDB can have purview over decks and other exterior amenities that aren't directly associated with the living area of the accessory dwelling unit. I will do my best to confirm that as we speak here and try to get a more definitive answer for you.
Great. Thank you.
Just a quick question on that. Would, just for my edification on this, even though the deck is attached to the ADU, being on the lowest level and not over 17 feet, would a deck like that even show up for SFDB if it was a standalone application?
Dylan, I'm not sure. That may be a question staff can answer.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
We don't want to send you off with an approval that might be not right. So we just want to make sure we get it right. And then my last set of questions go to the elevations. If we could go to the, what's that going to be? That's going to be the west elevation, the one facing across the canyon or across the.
Right. Yeah. So if you go to sheet 13A 3.2, you'll see what I'm calling south elevation. So we'll clarify that, but that is the proposed south elevation, lower left corner.
Okay. Yeah. So I think Jonathan asked about the height of that steel column on the south side, holding up the deck.
Yep.
And is there another? I'm confused, but it looks like the drawings are. We have big drawings; it'd be easier to see, but we're trying to look on little monitors.
Right.
Is there another column on the north side holding that deck up? Is that what I'm looking at?
Yeah, so there's going to be 3 columns. I'm just breaking the span on that beam because I didn't want that beam.
Oh, okay. Okay, now I see the third one. Thank you. I had a hard time trying to figure out how this deck was being held up. But you've got steel columns holding it up, and 2 of them will go down into the wall of the roof of the ADU is the way I'm reading that, correct?
That is exactly correct.
Okay, and you don't know yet because you haven't probably had it engineered whether you would have any additional cross bracing or support bracing off of those columns yet, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then I think you clarified the railing off of there for the kids. That's probably really important. The top of the rail would be wood. The railing part at the top is wood.
It would be wood. I think anything steel with kids grabbing onto it's going to be potentially too hot. So they just want a wood rail with a wood cap. We'll do vertical balusters and obviously less than 4-inch spacing.
Okay. I think that's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Fred. Did I get everybody? I believe I did. I have no questions. Everyone pretty much answered all my questions. So we'll go to, yeah, Ted.
I just wanted to hop back on and clarify the board member Sweeney's questions from earlier regarding the deck on the outside of the ADU. The deck that is attached to the ADU that is on the outside is in the purview of the SFDB. The SFDB's purview essentially does go to the exterior walls. So just to clarify that, the deck would be under the purview.
Can I follow up on that? Because Dylan asked a question I think is valid. And if that wasn't an ADU, would we look at that deck? I mean, I guess it's part of the whole project. So it's like adding a deck with the other deck. Does that make sense?
That's correct. I don't believe that the deck was the trigger for design review in and of itself.
Right.
There's a minor zoning exception which requires SFDB review.
Right.
Which was essentially the main trigger for design review. Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I will look at the trigger sheet and get back to you on that.
And just, was this one in the Hillside Design District?
Oh, okay.
So there might be other triggers. So I know it's kind of a specific question for the lower level deck, but if there are other elements that are getting design review, it can be packaged up with that. And then again, if it's on a slope over 20%, there are certain design review triggers that come into play. But yes, that portion that's on the outside of the ADU, even if it serves the ADU, is under the board's purview, as Ted mentioned.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, I'm gonna go to comments and I'm gonna go down the list of names. So if you have a comment, pop on up. The first one is Lisa James.
Yes, thank you, Chair Miller. I find that the project before us is reasonable and does the House a favor by cleaning up the zoning violations and that it's aesthetically appropriate. So I would be supportive of it.
Thank you very much. Jan Farrell.
I agree with what Lisa said. I'm totally in support of the project. I think it's fine.
Great, thank you. Joseph Motisha. Hello. Maybe he's, Robert Richards. You may come back. Any comments, Robert Richards?
Yeah, okay, I'm here. I agree with the previous comments. It seems like you're addressing a whole bunch of stuff that needs to be cleaned up with the house, and I think it's being addressed in an appropriate manner, so I'm in support of the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Fred Sweeney.
I agree with my colleagues. I think we're at a point we could give this project design approval. I would just hope whoever makes the motion that we make sure we clearly state what we looked at. And also remember they're asking for some new windows in the existing house, not part of the ADU. Just make sure that we've said that we've looked at it and they're okay and so forth and so on.
Thank you. Jonathan Ziegler.
Yeah, I'm in support of it. I do have a question about the 15-foot tall columns, and I'm wondering, would it be more appropriate to cantilever that deck and not have those columns?
Dylan, do you have a comment for that?
Yeah, you know, the cost of the cantilever is going to be so expensive. I mean, really kind of rule of thumb is 1/3, 2/3. So if you go out 6 feet, then you're going to be 12 feet back into the structure. And in order to do that would be so invasive and so expensive for this couple that it would make it it would make the project not possible. I did look at that structurally. I had Ashley and Vance come and look at it, and just the age of the house, the way it was constructed, cantilevering a deck like that with our current seismic codes and our dead load and live load would just be really cost prohibitive. So I think short answer is yes, it's possible. Long answer is it wouldn't be possible financially to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Joe, you're back. Do you have any comments? Just saw you.
Yes.
There you are.
Doesn't look like a house I remember. They've changed it. Yes, I'm in agreement with it. I think what you're proposing is in our guidelines, and yes, I agree with the rest of the board. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I follow up, I agree as well. So with that, would someone like to draft a motion?
Alrighty then.
Yeah, there you are. Okay.
So I would like to give this project design approval with the following comments: that we find the minor zoning exception for the trash enclosure is acceptable. We appreciate the cleanup work you're doing on all of the unpermitted things that were done to this house originally. The vertical wood deck railing is compatible with the rest of the design of the house, and that the deck on the ADU is also acceptable. The new windows that are being replaced, we also can agree with. And for the NPO findings, the proposed development is consistent with the rest of the architecture of the house and the neighborhood. We find that the materials are, the use of materials are of a quality and maintain the appearance of the home. And you can bring this back to consent for final approval. Oh, and I would like to define the neighborhood as Haya Cortita and Fellowship Road and Nix Road.
Great, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Lisa, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, this is Mary, Commission Secretary. Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Great, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Dylan.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. Seeing that's the last item on our agenda, I will conclude our single family design board for May 11th. Thank you.